Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided.
This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy is sponsored by Thomson Reuters, providing legal professionals with the intelligence, technology, and human expertise they need to find trusted answers. Products include Westlaw, Practical Law, and Firm Central legal practice management software for small law firms. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Online at thomsonreuters.com. Access to Democracy is made possible in part by a donation from Firefly Credit Union. Firefly is the new name of U.S. Federal Credit Union, which has proudly served the financial needs of the Greater Twin Cities community since 1925. At Firefly, we guide our members forward and give them the power to chase dreams by delivering the financial solutions they need to get ahead. From checking accounts to mortgages, we'll light the way. We are Firefly Credit Union, and this is Life Illuminated. And Dr. Charles Crutchfield of award-winning Crutchfield Dermatology in Eagan, acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. A Minnesota native who trained at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Crutchfield personally treats all patients and states that experience counts and quality matters. Crutchfield Dermatology. Look good, feel great, with beautiful skin.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns. Alan Miller with you. And I was just speaking with our first-time guest, Mark Frascone, an Eagan resident and who has developed a very interesting organization that we're going to talk about. But we've been doing this, it's hard for me to imagine, but in August we will actually be starting our 19th year on Access to Democracy. And thousands of interviews, which very happily on our behalf are now cataloged and available at the Dakota County Historical Society, so that if you can see how bad I was 19 years ago as opposed to how I haven't improved till today, you're welcome to do that. And but it's a treasure, and we're glad that they have decided to archive it, and it'll be there for posterity. And Mark wants to change posterity. Mark wants to change the world that we're living in, and Mark has founded IREB. So why don't you tell us what that is and what it means?
Well, IREB is it's an Indivisible group. Indivisible, of course, is the national organization that sprang up right after Trump was elected. It was a number of staffers.
Indivisible, not invisible, but indivisible.
Indivisible. That's
right.
Yeah, Indivisible. It was an idea that came from a number of staffers after Trump was elected about what were the most effective things that were used by the Tea Party to deal with the Democrats, and so they turned that around and came up with a document for Democrats to use, and they didn't realize how important it was going to be. Shortly after putting the document up on the website crashed because so many people were downloading it. So what Indivisible is, it's an idea, and it's simple. It's about resisting the Trump agenda by pressuring your member of Congress. And in our district, we have Jason Lewis, who is a Republican, and then we, of course, have Amy and Al as our Democratic senators. So we spend most of our time chasing Jason. Our name, Indivisible Resistance of Eagan Burnsville, comes from a conglomeration of a couple of ideas. Of course, the Indivisible chapter that we are locally, and then the resistance. We're part of the resistance to the Trump agenda and everything that means.
Now, a little background on Mark Frascone. Where are you from? Where do you live? What do you do? And et cetera.
Well, I'm a lifetime resident of Minnesota. I was born and raised here. I had a good childhood. I grew up on the east side of St. Paul. I was in the scouting movement. I joined the service. I was away for a few years in the Coast Guard. And I came back. I'm currently working here at Thomson Reuters as an information security analyst. I live in Eagan. I have 3 children, and they are, of course, moved out, and it's just my wife and I and our 2 dogs just in North Eagan.
Very good. Now, what motivated you to get involved like this? Have you ever been involved in a political movement?
Not actually, it was Bernie Sanders that got me fired up last year, and early in his campaign.
So many of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when he was running, I was sending money, I was phone banking, I was getting involved with him. And then when the caucuses came, I participated in our local caucus for the first time in my life and was elected as a delegate to the district convention. Prior to attending the district convention, I interviewed with the Senate District 51, and was nominated as a director at large, and then I was elected to that position at the district convention. And so I was active then. It's been a little over a year. I did a lot of door knocking for Senator Jim Carlson, Lori Halverson, Sandy Mason, a lot of the state level stuff. And we got to the election, we kind of thought things were going to be different, and then the day after the election, was when I started thinking about what we needed to do to fix things.
And things, if anything, have gotten a lot worse than we imagined they could be since the election, at least in my estimation. And it's probably culminated yesterday as we sit here with the House of Representatives passing this abortive, and I use that word cautiously, alleged repeal of the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, as most people like to refer to it. But which, interestingly enough, I heard described by Lawrence O'Donnell last night as spiking the ball in the first quarter and not recognizing that most of the game still lies ahead. But it is a frightening wake-up to the millions of people who stand to lose their health care, to the millions of people who are going to be kicked off the rolls, to the people who will no longer be able to afford health care. And interestingly enough, the bill was opposed by just about every institution with a medical background, AARP, a lot of health organizations, and even some insurance companies. And why insurance companies, in my estimation? Because they're afraid of people who are members now that they will lose who can't afford it. So that's a encapsulated opinion of mine, anyway.
Well, yeah, I think the healthcare is a great example of just how our Congress isn't listening to us. This isn't a bill that anyone really wants, not even the Republicans. This, what they wanted was better health care for less money. What they're getting is less health care for less money, and I don't think that's what they had planned on.
Or in some cases, less health care for more money.
Yes.
Where people's costs are going to go astronomically high. And interestingly enough, they also said that who will benefit from this bill, and of course it has to go to the Senate, and we have a long way to go down the road, which is why there has never been a Rose Garden press conference for a bill that passed the House, and only the House, right, as though it's the only, well, as far as Trump is concerned, he may think it's the only branch of government, I don't know. His lack of knowledge of this country, government, and our political institutions is beyond appalling. Yeah. But in any event, we have got to organize, as you have done, to fight moves like this, and it's certainly to your credit. So how has the organization grown? How do people learn about it? What do they do?
Well, it's been pretty organic right from the start. What we did is the Indivisible website, the national website, had a place where you could register a local group, and then people in your area could find you. And that's how we got started. We spun up a Facebook group right away. And so it's been mostly by word of mouth, and then we've had a lot of luck with getting media attention with a number of our events. And so we're collecting people like from who see us on TV or hear about us on the radio. It's been a steady growing process for us. And the most exciting part about it is the newcomers. Having been involved with the DFL for the last year, I've gotten to know a lot of the regulars. You go to the different functions and the fundraisers, and you see a lot of the same faces over and over again. There's a large group of activists, but to see so many new people coming into this resistance movement, that's what's exciting. Like last night, now we had our largest meeting yet in quite some time. We had over 40 people that came in, and it was standing room only in our place, but there was only maybe 6 or 8 folks that I recognized. The rest of them were all brand new. So we're getting quite a few new folks coming into the resistance.
And I think as more people learn about Indivisible and IREB, it can only grow.
Right.
Because I think that people are awakening and are becoming afraid of what this means to our democracy. And it literally is under attack,
It is.
in my estimation. And we have to use every peaceable means possible to protect it. And there's attacks on the First Amendment also. Yesterday, a woman was convicted for laughing during a Sessions nomination hearing. And having heard the tape, it is ludicrous, but of course Sessions is now the head of the Justice Department. This woman stands to go to jail for a year and pay a fine for laughing during this hearing. And hello, First Amendment. I recently wrote an article about it. It hasn't been published yet for one of the papers, and if it isn't published in the next couple of days, I'm going to put it on my blog. So, but this is what we have to do. We have to wake up citizen awareness.
Well, one of the things we like to do in our meetings when people come in, and it's getting to the point where it's a little difficult to do with larger groups, but we always ask people when they walk in, we'll do introductions. What's your name? What part of Eagan or Burnsville are you from? And then what we ask for is what's that thing that made you stand up, that made you come from your comfortable life and want to get involved in politics? I want to hear what that thing is. Tell me what we call it our elevator speech. It's, what is that one thing that gets you fired up? And so I really enjoy is listening to what it is that made people stand up, the one thing that made them say this is enough. And so that's what's exciting too, is understanding what's motivating people to come into the resistance.
And what do you hear most of the people that are coming in?
I think most people, and I don't want to try to oversell this, but I think most people are afraid of our descent into a fascist government. They're afraid that we may be experiencing some of the same things that early Nazi Germany did. We don't know for sure because there's so many problems that we haven't solved yet. We have the Russian influence issue. We have the tax issues. We don't know if he's beholden to someone or if he's even a real president. So there's a lot of fear out there over just, is our government in the hands of honest people?
Well, we know for one thing that he got 3 million approximately less votes than the losing candidate. Right. I guess we could put, quote, only in America, end quote, can you win an election and lose. But that's our very archaic electoral college system.
Well, we have to give some credit to the Republicans for being so successful at gaming our election system.
They did it beautifully with the help of the FBI and the Russians and a few other people.
And I know that the system was never intended to be gamed like that. The reason why it was set up the way it was to prevent people like that from taking control of our country. And somehow they were able to turn it on its ear, if that's the case.
And Trump, of course, never expected to win. And as he said recently, I didn't think so much was involved in being president. Like so many of his remarks. It's interfering with his golf weekends. I mean, it's being the leader of the free world carries with it certain responsibilities. Surprise, surprise.
Boring responsibilities sometimes, not as exciting
sometimes.
as he's used to, I'm sure.
So the bill passed the House yesterday, and one grinning face I saw clapping his hands in a good photo op situation for him was our newly elected Congressman Jason Lewis. And what was the group's reaction to that? And what is the group's reaction to that?
Well, of course, we're not happy. Jason hasn't been in contact with us at all. We've been writing letters, holding town halls, doing a lot of different events, and he seems to refuse to acknowledge that we are here. Our response today is that we held a die-in outside of his office where it was a picket where we grabbed and made some tombstones over the things that we saw that were killed off yesterday, and we had a picket that went on for about an hour and a half down at his office. I think it's just completed now as we're getting started here.
Did you get press coverage?
Yeah, actually, the Star and Tribune was covering. I just before I came over, I saw a picture that had been posted. So, and I don't know if, who else had shown up, but it sounded like we might have gotten other coverage as well.
That's what's needed for people who want to get involved. And of course, we have our graphics going up during this interview so that they can get in touch with you, or they can go online, to Indivisible or to IREB?
So you'd want to search for Indivisible Resistance of Eagan, Burnsville, or IREB, IREB. In either case, you should, we're starting to pop up a little bit quicker now. When we first set up our team, it was a little harder to find, but now that we've got more members and we've been searched more, it's a little bit easier to find. So
yeah,
IREB.
I've noticed the things that are searched often move to the top of the list.
Yes. Yeah. So we're getting searched a lot more. There's a lot more people coming in. For a while there, we were doubling about every week in size, and so we're up to about 240 members now, and they're come in every day, 10, 15 a day. Especially if we've done an event where they've heard about us. People are interested in this, and like I said, it's new people, not people who've been politically.
Well, that's one of the great things, because there are those of us, I have not been involved in politics here in Minnesota in 20 years, but I was very involved when we lived in New York. And of course, on this show, everybody is welcome to come in. They know what my politics are, and we have had some really fiery discussions, but everybody gets a fair shake. Now, I've called Congressman Lewis's office, never had a call back. I've emailed them, I've never had a response. I just haven't had the common courtesy that I have received from many other Republicans. And I guess that's par for the course of what's going to be with the Congressman Lewis.
Well, and I can back that up too, because that's been my experience as well. I write to him almost on a daily basis. I call in almost on a daily basis. He's got a web form where you could submit comments to him, and all I've ever gotten back are form letter type responses. And even when I've responded,
thank you for contacting our office.
Thank you.
The congressman is happy to hear from you.
Yep.
Not.
Yeah, with no real substance.
Yeah.
So, he's not very good at contacting people. That's even more so, I think, than Klein was. I think Klein was a little bit reclusive, but nothing like Jason Lewis.
John Klein was on this show probably 36 times, and we certainly had some fiery exchanges, but within the realm of decency. And nobody ever hit anybody, and it was political discussion. Pat Anderson, who was the Republican National Committee woman, among other things, and mayor here in Eagan, has been on many times, and she'll be here again in a few weeks. And I absolutely love the woman, and we go at it, but it's an adult conversation. I think about others of the Republican persuasion who've been here, and they're welcome to come on. What we want to do is present on Access to Democracy to the people who watch this show, and over the years it has really grown considerably, the opportunity to hear both sides go. And to hear somebody say, well, I don't know what I'm talking about, or I don't understand, well, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Opinion. but that's what it's all about. But I see communication diminishing. I see the First Amendment being endangered, and I see some frightening things down the road. You mentioned fascism. That's something that I have talked about and written about. There are rumblings of some terrible times in this world, and I hear those same rumblings coming out of the administration and some of the people who are involved in the administration.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but some of them, many of them. And I'm really disappointed that the Republicans would line up, that they're so jealous to have control, finally, that they would line up behind this man who really doesn't stand for anything. And it's frightening.
Yeah, it is. And well, I saw the same picture with Jason smiling about 4 rows back behind the president. He was craning his head around to make sure that he got into the shot so he would get some credit for supporting the president's health care plan. He's been a staunch supporter of this plan all along, and one of the calls that I've made to his office was to ask, are they doing any polling? Do they actually know what the citizens of Minnesota want in this regard? He doesn't seem to be letting up at all, and he's not discussing it. He's just going full speed ahead, and like you said, we still have a huge hurdle. They still have a huge hurdle to get this thing passed through the Senate, and I don't think they're going to do it. So
it has to go back to conference committee.
Got to be reconciled.
And then it has to be reconciled, as you said, and then ultimately find its way to the president. This does not happen overnight.
No.
And there are some rational heads in the Senate, which is much closer in terms of majority vote than is the House.
Well, Bernie's already given his word that it's not going to pass, so I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, Bernie was pretty fiery last night when I saw him on television.
Yeah.
And
it's nice to see him engaged again.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was very disappointed in the election. I was very disappointed in the way it was run. I wrote several articles about the fact that Bernie was being frozen out of a level playing field, and I still feel that today. I think were that not the case, that we might have a different president today. But it is what it is, and we have to live with it, and we have to deal with it as it is today.
Well, and I think, I see in our cycle or circles that there's a lot of cycles being expended on trying to determine what happened with that. And I think we really do need to wait a little bit till we know what all the influences are. We don't know to what
That's true.
Yeah. So the Hillary folks and the Bernie people beating each other up, we've got to stop that. We have to work together.
Absolutely.
And we have to resolve to not make the same mistakes that
what's
we've
in
made in the
those
past.
tax returns anyway?
Yeah, get a look at those. That would be awesome.
So it's not just Lewis's office that you people have demonstrated at, though. So tell me some of your other activities.
Well, we actually pride ourselves on being a pretty active group. We have a great team. We've got a leadership team of about 8 people that are just always on fire to do something. And so we've got folks. We've been to the Tax March. We've been to the Science March. We supported the May Day March. We had a picket out on the corner of Pilot Knob and Yankee Doodle Road the day after Gorsuch was confirmed. We had about 30 to 40 activists that showed up that day. We stood on all 4 corners. It's the busiest intersection in Dakota County. And we waved signs, we had a megaphone, and we had a real good time, and we had a lot of great conversations with people, some good, some folks that didn't support us, and we also held a town hall. We invited Jason through a number of avenues. Of course, he didn't show up, but we did have 160 people in our community that showed up. And what I like about that one, especially when Jason doesn't show up, is that we use the opportunity to train the folks that come to this. I want them to be better at being activists. That's, I see, as Indivisible's job is to train activists in the community. And so when we have these functions, when we have these pickets and we have these marches, we're always working at training people on how to be a better activist.
And what I've seen from what I've observed about your organization is that you're not out there to break the law. You're not out there blocking highways. As you said, you stood on 4 corners.
Right.
And the troubling thing with me, even though philosophically I'm aligned to some of these other movements, is that they block highways, and all that does, that's just one thing that they do, but all that does is just generate a lot of adverse publicity and anger at the organizations, which is just so counterproductive that that's not what you want. What you want is support. What you want is the movement that's going to move ahead and take this country back. And that's something that we must do.
Right.
And so other areas that you were involved in.
Well, like I said, we plan a number of events. There's a lot of letter writing. Well, last night we had our full team meeting. We have a monthly meeting where the entire team meets. Angie Craig came and was our guest speaker, and then after she got done talking to us, we wrote letters to our members of Congress about what we felt about things. And in some cases they were thank yous, and in some cases they were, we need you to do something. And so we're trying to find, because we've got so many folks that have joined our group, we're developing as many avenues as we possibly can for them to express themselves to their members of Congress in a way that makes them comfortable.
Are there companion groups throughout the state of Minnesota?
Yes, there are. And I think just in CD2, we've got nearly 18 different groups that have sprung up since the election, different types of groups with different focuses, women's rights groups, religious groups, all opposed to the Trump agenda. Throughout Minnesota, there are literally hundreds.
We had an executive order yesterday which would do away with the separation of church and state in effect. And what bothered me is seeing a lot of religious people there at the signing of that. Go back to your churches and your synagogues and get up on the pulpit, but keep your mouth shut about politics because you're getting a free ride tax-wise. So that's just a little rejoinder from me in that regard.
Yeah, I wasn't happy with that one either. It's we would like to move in the other direction, I think.
So, if people want to get in touch with you, Mark Frascone, we have put it up there, but why don't you give us a contact email?
Well, you can certainly contact our group through IREB, IREB.indivisible at gmail.com. And that's our group's email. Otherwise, contact us through the Facebook page, or just look me up personally. I take phone calls just about any time, and I'm talking to people night and day.
And IREB, well, it's not intended to be. It's I rebel against really what's happening to this country. And
what I usually tell people, it's like iPhone, only more rebel-like. And I think it connects with folks. They like that idea.
And you're doing yeoman's work, and congratulations to you. There will be a better day.
I believe so. I wouldn't be doing
really
that.
believe so.
Yeah.
And we've been talking with Mark Frascone,
Yes.
who's the founder of IREB here in the not in the Twin Cities, in the two cities. And keep it up.
Well, thank you, Alan. Thank you for having me.